Texas isn't just a state. It's an entirely different world with rules nobody else follows. These are 25 wild facts that only real Texans actually know. Fact 25. The Lone Star Nation. Texas was its own country. From 1836 to 1845, the Republic of Texas stood as a fully independent, internationally recognized nation with its own president, army, navy, currency, and foreign diplomats. Other countries, including France, Britain, and the Netherlands, formally recognized Texas as a sovereign state. 9 full years of complete independence before it chose to join the United States. And that word matters, chose. Texas wasn't conquered, absorbed, or annexed by force. It made a decision. It voted to join. And the moment it did, it negotiated terms that no other state in American history has ever had. That kind of entrance doesn't just make history, it makes identity. Fact 24. The equal flag. Texas is the only state allowed to fly its flag at the exact same height as the US flag. Every other state in the country flies theirs lower out of protocol and tradition. Texas flies equal. That right wasn't given out of courtesy. It was written directly into the annexation agreement as a negotiated condition when Texas joined the Union in 1845. It's a small detail that carries enormous weight. Stand in front of any Texas government building and look up. 2 flags, same height. That's not decoration. That's a constitutional statement that has been standing for nearly 2 centuries. Fact 23. 254 counties. Texas has more counties than any other state in America, 254 of them. To put that into perspective, the entire state of Rhode Island could fit inside several of those counties individually without breaking a sweat. Brewster County alone, located in West Texas, is larger than the entire state of Connecticut. Harris County, home to Houston, has a larger population than the entire state of Iowa. Texas didn't just grow big, it organized big, divided big, and governed big from the very beginning. The sheer scale of county-level administration in Texas is something most Americans never think about until they try to drive across just one of them. Fact 22. The ranch bigger than a state. The King Ranch in South Texas covers 825,000 acres of land, making it larger than the entire state of Rhode Island. To put that into even sharper focus, it's bigger than some countries. The ranch has its own zip code, its own internal road network that spans hundreds of miles, its own water infrastructure, and even its own cattle breed, the Santa Gertrudis, which was developed entirely on the property through decades of selective breeding. The King Ranch isn't just a ranch, it functions more like a self-sustaining nation within a nation, and it sits quietly in South Texas, barely mentioned in the same breath as the Eiffel Tower or the Great Wall, even though by any measure of scale, it absolutely belongs in that conversation. Fact 21. Wind Empire. Texas produces more wind energy than any other state in America. And here's where it gets staggering. It produces more wind power than most entire countries on the planet. If Texas were its own independent nation, it would rank in the global top 5 for wind energy generation. The same state that built its entire modern economy on oil and natural gas has quietly become one of the most powerful clean energy producers on Earth. The oil derricks haven't disappeared, but now they share the skyline with thousands of massive white turbines spinning across the plains. Texas didn't abandon its energy identity, it expanded it. Fact 20. Its own power grid. Texas operates on its own completely independent electrical grid called ERCOT, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. It doesn't connect to the Eastern Interconnection or the Western Interconnection grids that serve the rest of the continental United States. What that means in practice is that when other states face energy crises, they can request emergency power transfers from neighboring grids. Texas cannot. And when Texas faces a crisis, it handles it alone. The 2021 Winter Storm Uri exposed the vulnerability of this independence when millions of Texans lost power for days in below freezing temperatures. But even after that disaster, the independent grid remains. Because in Texas, independence isn't just a preference, it's practically a religion. Fact 19. The name means friends. The word Texas comes from the Caddo word Tejas, which translates to friends or allies. Spanish missionaries encountered the Caddo people in the region during the late 1600s, adopted the word, and began applying it to the entire territory. Over time, Tejas became Texas, and the name spread across maps, documents, and eventually the entire world. So technically, every single time someone says the word Texas, they are saying the word friends, a state named after friendship that has also fought wars, defied governments, and told the rest of the country to stay out of its business more times than anyone can count. The name is friendly. The history is anything but soft. Fact Aston Pad Smith, 6 flags, 1 Texas. 6 completely different governments have claimed sovereignty over Texas throughout its recorded history. Spain, France, Mexico, the Republic of Texas, the Confederate States of America, and the United States of America. No other U.S. state has passed through the hands of that many ruling powers. Each one left something behind, in the architecture, in the food, in the law, in the language, in the culture. The Spanish left missions. The French left place names. Mexico left cuisine that became Texas cuisine. The Republic left the pride. The Confederacy left wounds that Texas still wrestles with today. And America got a state that has never fully forgotten it used to answer to nobody. Fact 17. Chili was born here. Chili was invented in Texas, and Texans will make sure you never forget it. San Antonio women known as the Chili Queens were selling slow-cooked, deeply spiced meat stew on the open plazas of the city as far back as the 1860s. Their recipes, their open-air kitchens, and their bold flavors built the foundation of what became one of America's most beloved dishes. Texas chili was eventually declared the official state dish. And if you are ever in Texas and you order chili with beans, you will receive a look from a Texan that communicates more disappointment than any words ever could. Real Texas chili is meat, chili peppers, spices, and nothing else. The beans conversation is not up for debate. Fact 16. Bat capital of the world. Texas is home to more bat species than any other U.S. state, and nowhere is that more dramatically on display than the Congress Avenue Bridge in Austin. Beneath that bridge lives a colony of up to 1.5 million Mexican free-tailed bats, the largest urban bat colony in all of North America. Every single evening at dusk, from roughly March through November, those bats emerge in a swirling, churning dark mass that pours into the sky for up to 45 minutes straight. Tourists line the bridge and the riverbank below. Local restaurants set up bat-watching events. The city has completely embraced it. In most cities, 1.5 million bats living under a bridge would be a crisis. In Austin, it's a tourist attraction and a point of civic pride. Fact 15. The Alamo's real secret. Everyone has heard of the Battle of the Alamo, but most people picture it as a fort that was always a fort. It wasn't. The Alamo was originally a Spanish Catholic mission, Mission San Antonio de Valero, built in 1718, nearly 120 years before it became a battlefield. By the time the famous 1836 siege happened, the mission had been converted into a military garrison almost by accident. For 13 days, roughly 189 defenders held their position against an army estimated at anywhere between 1,500 and 6,000 Mexican soldiers under General Santa Anna. Every single defender died, but the delay they created gave Sam Houston time to organize the Texas Army. 6 weeks later, at the Battle of San Jacinto, Texas forces routed Santa Anna's army in just 18 minutes, screaming, "Remember the Alamo," as they charged. The Alamo didn't just make history. The Alamo made Texas. Fact 14. The canyon nobody talks about. When most Americans think of dramatic canyon landscapes, they picture Arizona's Grand Canyon. But Texas has Palo Duro Canyon, the second largest canyon in the entire United States, and the overwhelming majority of Americans have never heard of it. Located in the Texas Panhandle near Amarillo, Palo Duro stretches 120 miles long, reaches up to 20 miles wide, and drops approximately 800 feet into the earth. Its walls are painted in deep reds, oranges, and yellows that shift color as the sun moves across the sky. The Comanche and Kiowa people called it home for centuries. Spanish explorers stumbled upon it in 1541 and couldn't believe what they were seeing. It's been called the Grand Canyon of Texas. And the only reason it doesn't get the same attention is because everything in Texas tends to get overshadowed by Texas itself. Fact 13. The city with no zoning laws. Houston is the 4th largest city in the United States, and it is the only major city in America with no comprehensive zoning laws. None. Officially and deliberately. In Houston, you can legally build a nightclub directly next to a church, a daycare directly next to a bar, a chemical storage facility directly next to a residential neighborhood. The city has tried to pass zoning legislation multiple times throughout its history, and voters have rejected it every single time. The result is one of the most visually chaotic, architecturally unpredictable, and strangely fascinating urban landscapes in the entire world. Skyscrapers appear in random neighborhoods. Strip malls sit next to historic mansions. Houston looks like a city that was designed by everyone simultaneously, with no plan and no communication. And somehow, it works. Fact 12. Dr. Pepper came first. Dr. Pepper was invented in Waco, Texas in 1885, one full year before Coca-Cola was created in Atlanta, Georgia. A young pharmacist named Charles Alderton developed the distinctive formula at Morrison's Old Corner drugstore, and the drink became so immediately popular that it began spreading across the region and eventually the entire country. Today, Dr. Pepper is one of the best-selling soft drinks in the world, and its origin story is almost entirely unknown outside of Texas. Fact 11. The Bluebonnet Law. The bluebonnet is the Texas state flower, and the relationship Texans have with it borders on sacred. Every spring, the roadsides and fields across the hill country in central Texas explode in waves of deep blue and purple as millions of bluebonnets bloom simultaneously. The Texas Department of Transportation intentionally plants them along highway corridors specifically to maintain and expand these displays. Families pull over on highways every single spring for the annual bluebonnet photo. It's a Texas tradition so universal it might as well be a legal requirement. Picking them in certain protected areas is illegal. Damaging them on public land can result in fines. You can look, you can photograph. You absolutely cannot uproot them and take them home. Fact 10. Spaceport, Texas. SpaceX built its primary rocket development and launch facility, Starbase, on the Gulf Coast of South Texas near the small community of Boca Chica. The most ambitious, aggressive, and transformative private space program in human history is operating out of the Texas coastline. Rockets the size of skyscrapers are assembled, tested, and launched from this remote stretch of Texas beach. Elon Musk has gone further, initiating the process to officially incorporate Boca Chica as its own city, to be named Starbase, Texas. The state that once defined itself by cattle drives and oil fields is now the launch pad for humanity's attempt to reach Mars. Texas went from the frontier of the Old West to the frontier of outer space, and it didn't even slow down to acknowledge the transition. Fact 9. The Texas Rangers. The Texas Rangers are the oldest law enforcement agency in North America, with statewide jurisdiction, founded in 1823. Before Texas was even a republic, before it was even a state. They were originally formed to protect settlers pushing into the frontier from raids and violence. Over the next 2 centuries, they became one of the most legendary law enforcement institutions in world history, solving crimes, stopping riots, hunting outlaws, and operating with an almost mythological level of authority and reputation. The most famous story, possibly true, possibly legend, definitely very Texas, involves a town that called for rangers to handle a major riot. One ranger stepped off the train. When the panicked mayor asked where the rest were, the ranger reportedly said, "One riot, one ranger." That single sentence became the entire philosophy of Texas law enforcement. Fact 8. Weather warfare. Texas experiences weather extremes so dramatic and so varied that they seem almost impossible for a single state to contain. West Texas regularly hits temperatures above 110 degrees Fahrenheit during summer. The Gulf Coast gets slammed by Atlantic hurricanes that can reshape entire coastlines overnight. Tornado Alley cuts directly through the state, producing some of the most violent twisters ever recorded on Earth. And then, as the entire world witnessed in February 2021, Winter Storm Uri sent temperatures plummeting to historic lows across the entire state, freezing pipes, collapsing infrastructure, and leaving millions of people without power for days in deadly cold. Snow fell in Houston. Ice covered San Antonio. The state that is globally associated with brutal heat was paralyzed by cold. Texas doesn't have weather. It has weather with a personal vendetta. Fact 7. The border town that's 2 countries at once. El Paso sits so far west in Texas that it occupies a completely different time zone from Houston, Mountain Time versus Central Time. Geographically, culturally, and practically, El Paso has more in common with New Mexico and Mexico than with the rest of Texas. The city shares the Rio Grande with Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, forming one of the largest binational metropolitan areas on the planet, with a combined population of over 2 million people. El Paso residents cross the border for lunch, for dental work, for grocery shopping, for family dinners. The two cities have shared infrastructure, shared culture, shared language, and shared history going back centuries. The Rio Grande is technically an international boundary. In daily life, it functions more like a neighborhood street. Fact 6. The vanishing underground ocean. Beneath the flat, dry surface of West Texas and the broader Great Plains lies one of the most critical water resources in the Western Hemisphere, the Ogallala Aquifer. This massive underground reservoir stretches beneath 8 states, but Texas draws from it more heavily than almost anyone else. Texas agriculture, the cotton, the wheat, the cattle operations, depends on it to an extraordinary degree. The problem is staggering in its implications. The aquifer is being depleted dramatically faster than natural rainfall can ever replenish it. In some sections beneath Texas, water levels have dropped by more than 100 feet over the past several decades. Scientists and water experts have been sounding alarms for years. The surface of Texas looks vast, invincible, and permanent. Underneath it, one of the most important resources the state has ever had is quietly disappearing. Fact 5. Houston, the moon called. When Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first human beings to land on the moon on July 20, 1969, the first word officially transmitted back to Earth wasn't mission control, it was Houston. NASA's Johnson Space Center, located in Houston, Texas, has served as the nerve center of American human spaceflight since 1961. Every major crewed mission, Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, Space Shuttle, the International Space Station, has been monitored, managed, and directed from Houston. The city that grew up around cattle and oil became the city that put humans on the moon and kept them alive in space. When the universe needed a headquarters, it picked Texas. Fact 4. The Longhorn's comeback. The Texas Longhorn, the iconic cattle breed with horns that can span over 7 feet from tip to tip, was nearly wiped off the face of the earth by the early 20th century. The same animal that had been central to the entire Texas cattle industry, that had been driven up the famous Chisholm Trail by the millions, had been crossbred, displaced, and reduced to a tiny remnant population through decades of commercial agricultural changes. By the 1920s, fewer than 30 purebred longhorns were believed to exist. A small federal conservation effort scraped together those survivors and slowly, painstakingly rebuilt the breed from near extinction. Today, Texas Longhorns number in the hundreds of thousands. An animal that defined a state, nearly vanished from it, and then walked right back. Fact 3. 10 landscapes in one state. Texas contains 10 distinct ecological and climate zones within its borders, a geographic fact that most people, including many Texans, don't fully appreciate. The dense piney woods of East Texas look and feel nothing like the Chihuahuan desert of West Texas. The subtropical humidity of the Gulf Coast shares almost nothing with the high-elevation mountain landscape of the Davis Mountains or the Big Bend region. The flat agricultural plains of the Panhandle are a completely different world from the spring-fed rivers and rolling limestone hills of the Texas Hill Country. Driving from one end of Texas to the other at highway speed takes over 12 hours. And across that drive, the landscape shifts so dramatically that it feels less like crossing a state and more like traveling across an entire continent. 10 climates, one border, one name. Fact 2. The Lone Star's hidden message. The single star on the Texas flag isn't simply a design choice made for aesthetics. Every element of the flag was designed with deliberate, specific intent. The red stripe represents bravery. The white stripe represents purity. The blue stripe represents loyalty. And the lone star at the center represents Texas standing unified and self-sufficient, whether as its own independent republic or as a member of the United States. The flag was designed to function as a declaration as much as a symbol. One star, not 50. One identity, not borrowed. It was meant to communicate that Texas stands on its own. And 2 centuries later, that single star still carries every bit of that original weight. Fact 1. Texas is a state of mind. Here's the fact that explains every single thing on this list. Texas isn't just a location on a map. It is a cultural identity that people carry with them for the rest of their lives, regardless of where they go. Texans who relocate to other states don't stop calling themselves Texan. They raise their children as Texans. They bring Texas food, Texas music, Texas attitudes, and Texas pride with them into every city they move to. There are Texan communities on every continent. People who have never set foot in Texas grow up feeling connected to it through family stories and inherited identity. The pride isn't manufactured. It isn't a marketing campaign. It was built from the ground up through centuries of independence, conflict, survival, reinvention, and an absolutely unshakable belief that this particular piece of land is unlike anything else that has ever existed. You can leave Texas, but Texas never, ever leaves you.